All right. So the theme of today's episode is marriage. And I happen to have here Rebeca Mireles-Rios, who I have been married to happily for 24 years. And just very excited to have you here. Welcome, Rebeca.
Thank you.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about Rebeca. Rebeca grew up in San Francisco, California. She is the daughter of a Mexican-American father who grew up in the Mission District and a Serbian-American mother who grew up in the Sunset District of San Francisco. Rebecca's parents divorced when she was in second grade, making a huge impact on her trajectory. When she was in sixth grade, her classmates teased and bullied her and even voted her as the ugliest girl in class. Can you believe that? Her teacher found out about the vote and actually laughed. By this age, Rebeca made 2 commitments in her life. She said, you know what? I'm going to become a sixth grade teacher so that when my kids are in my class, I keep them safe. I don't let them get bullied and definitely not talked about in the ways that I've been talked about. And the second commitment she made was that when she grew up, she was going to have a strong household where her relationship was healthy and fierce in terms of working together as a couple to lift up any future children she might have. So she already was manifesting this at a young age. Rebeca, I know that, that journey early on was a journey that, was tough being split. I know you talk about that a lot, growing up in, 2 different households. Tell us a little bit more, like you're in second grade, parents split. What's your life like now?
Wow. Taking me back. I remember living out of a bag, and that's what it felt like, a suitcase that never really got unpacked. So I would go to my mom's house every other Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then my dad's house Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, every other Wednesday, along with my sister. And we did that till I was 18. So I was always moving, always back and forth, never really settled. And so that was hard. But I also learned to kind of just roll with it and move and kind of be a nomad in a way. And so I think that really helped me in many ways.
To know how to navigate a world that's constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're this little girl shifting around, living out of your bag. And you tell yourself something. You're like, listen, I'm not going to live like this when I grow up. What was it that drove you to tell yourself that?
Yeah, I knew that I craved a sense of stability, and I really wanted that for my future. I didn't know what that looked like, and I didn't even know how to get there. So that was a process to be where I am today. That was a journey. And I think I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn what that looked like. I know when I went to college, I went to UC Davis, and I had the opportunity to go to a college close to home. And I would live at home. My dad said, you're going to stay home. And I said, no, I have to go away. And Davis was 90 miles from my house. That was the furthest school I applied to. And I went, and it was a magical time because I was in the same place for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And so I finally unpacked my suitcase. I unpacked my bags. I had a place for everything and I felt safe. And I think that experiencing that feeling of being safe and having my place was something that, I knew I was searching for.
For you, having a place that you're settled into where you don't have to move your bags, move your stuff on a consistent basis, that's safety for you and security. Mm-hmm. And I've had to learn that in our relationship because I love moving. Yeah. I love just picking up and going to a new household and, you know, renting a new place or selling a place and buying a new and you've been like, hey, Vic, you need to chill out. Like, I like the consistency of just one place and being grounded in that one place. Yeah. That's powerful, that sense of the groundedness and needing that security. You went on to Davis, right? And then you went on to fulfill that vision that you said, I'm going to be a teacher because I need to help those kids that are like me who my teacher didn't help. So from Davis, where do you go from there to get yourself ready to be a teacher?
Yeah, I mean, at Davis, you know, I remember tutoring, and as a little girl, Ruby, and she was in 6th grade. And I would go to her house and tutor her once a week. And I remember then thinking, feeling what it felt like to be in 6th grade again. And from there, I was able to apply to grad school, and I applied to Berkeley to be a teacher. So I went to Berkeley to do a multiple subject teaching credential and master's. But I knew then that I wanted to be a teacher to create a safe space for students like myself. And when you're in a program like that, you get to student teach kindergarten classes, 3rd grade classes. And the little kids scared me a lot. Oh. They were beautiful, but it was really hard. And when I got into my 6th grade placement, I fell in love, literally.
But hold on, before you go into falling in love with education and teaching and with some guy you met, that would be me. I do want to go set a foundation because, you know, like I didn't have a dad. And then my mom was constantly changing partners. So for me, it's very important for my audience to know that, you know, stability is so important for children. And that, yeah, sometimes you're not going to have the right person in your life and you got to move on. But you got to eventually build healthy relationships, whether it's with a romantic partner or other people that are going to help you uplift yourself. And if you have kids, your own kids. Okay. So going back to these ideas of divorce, you know, divorce is a big wound for children, separation. And so out of our deepest wounds can come the most profound strengths. So for some of us, even though we had those wounds, that allowed us the strength to know how to recognize not just love, but a healthy relationship with love. And I think that's where you're headed in terms of finding someone that you, or something that you fell in love with. So a study in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that about 20 to 25% of children with divorced parents face significant emotional or behavioral problems. And that's compared to 10% that have parents that have not divorced. Another study in the American Sociological Review found that children of divorced parents are twice as likely to drop out of high school. Twice as likely. You and I know that. We see that in our research, with about 29% showing lower academic performance. So, you know, when I said we see that in our research, you know, I have to update the audience that you went and became a 6th grade teacher and then a university professor. So we're going back and forth here, but I'll take us back to when you were becoming a teacher in a second here. So thinking about divorce and just being in a situation now where you're guiding students that may have parents that are separated or divorced. Have you seen a difference in those kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I teach a child and adolescent development course too. And in the course, we do talk about divorce a lot and the impact on children, depending on the age you are when your parents divorce. And a lot of students share their experiences. And one thing we do know about the research, and I know I felt this a lot, is one of the toughest times for students whose parents are going through a divorce is the time leading up to the divorce. And I think Sometimes it's the anxiety of like anticipating the divorce. Students, our kids are smart. Kids are smart. They know, and they hear things. They hear the conflict. They feel the conflict. They feel the tension. And so sometimes the actual divorce isn't the hardest part. So yeah, I see it with our students at UCSB, saw it with the students we worked with. And I definitely saw it, reflecting on my own experience, struggling, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade were hard for me because of what was happening.
Were you acting up or were you shutting down?
I shut down. I think there was a lot of the anxiety before. I couldn't sleep at night. I knew something was happening. I could hear my parents arguing. There were a lot of fights, a lot of storming out. And I just wanted that to be over. Like, I just didn't want to have that happen anymore. And I wanted just, again, that safe space. And so I was always on edge. And it impacted me in school too. And I remember in fifth grade, I was shut down. I wouldn't do my work. I actually didn't do well in fifth grade. I failed religion.
What's that smile about?
Because I just forgot. I failed religion.
You felt religious, so you rebelled against religion. You're like, hey, how come they just talk about the family, but I don't get to have it?
Yeah, I think there was, I don't know what was happening there. But yeah, I think, and it was, again, that was my way. And
you took us to fifth grade, so take us back to sixth. I mean, you are drop dead gorgeous. I'm sure the audience will attest to it. If you're watching the video, I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed, right? You just are stunning, right? I think most people would agree with that statement. And I'm lucky because I'm fail, right? It's like I fail, like I'm ugly, and I somehow ended up with a gorgeous partner. But like, what the hell was going through the minds of these kids that are like, this girl's ugly?
Yeah. I was a new girl in a sixth grade space. It was my first time ever in a co-ed school and environment, and I think, I don't think my experience is that uncommon when I talk to a lot of people that say they felt like they didn't belong in middle school or they felt awkward. But I think the kind of difference here is that, what was what you said earlier? It was my teacher too. And the classroom climate, the culture of the classroom, was not a safe space, and it was okay for people to make fun of me and draw pictures on their peachy folders of how ugly I was and pass it around. And so I think I remember looking at the teacher and like with my eyes, begging her to can we just learn? Can you teach something so we don't have to hear this, or, let us read our books, or, tell them to shut up is what I wanted her to do. And so I just had such a sense of like, this is not okay. Like, this shouldn't be like this. And so
little Rebecca was in a lot of pain, silent pain. And then you were hoping that a teacher supported you through the pain, but she didn't. So then little Rebecca seeing big Rebecca was like, hey, big Rebecca, you're going to be a teacher so you could support students. And then big Rebecca was like, I got you. And that's when you went to Berkeley, became a teacher. And I mean, check out the research. The research shows that there's a study in the Journal of School Psychology that a supportive teacher can reduce bullying incidents by 33%. So for those of you that are educators, just know, like, when kids are hurting inside, like little Rebecca was, home was messed up, then she gets to school, kids are calling her ugly. If you're supportive, those odds of the student feeling like they have a safe space increase. And I know you've been creating that in your classroom. What have been your own strategies as a teacher? You know, as you've moved along supporting kids at all ages, whether it's college students and sixth graders and little ones, when they are hurting, and you know they're hurting because you know what pain is.
Yeah. I mean, I think making it clear that there's not no tolerance for the bullying. I think that's a big piece right there. I think that pain comes in all like different forms, and so you'll have kids that act out, are loud, want a lot of attention because they're hurting, and that's the way they get it. And so a lot of times teachers end up spending a lot of time with the students that are the loudest or talk the most. And what I always do is I look for the students that are not talking the most and that are quiet and maybe withdrawn. And sometimes it doesn't mean that you have to make them talk or that have the expectations that they are performing that way, but that sometimes it's just like acknowledging them, looking at them, checking in. How are you? You okay? I think those are the ways that you can be supportive, and support looks different for every student too.
Well, I've been there. I can attest to the fact that a lot of students, some of them have grown up, gone on to get Harvard master's degrees, and they always come back and they always message us and say, Rebecca, because of you, I made it and you supported me. So I know your work works. I know your research works. I know your teaching practice works. I know your love works and your healing practices work. So I want you to know I appreciate all of those characteristics you have in your professional world. I think at home we talk a lot about our personal characteristics, but I want to appreciate you for your professional characteristics as well. And, you know, today we're talking about our marriage, right? So let's get to it. So you fall in love. That's what you said. Okay, I'm going to quote you. You said you got to Berkeley. They put you in your first placement. You fell in love. By the way, happens to be that I was a counselor at your first placement. So you show up to your first placement, Willard Middle School.
Yep.
And we meet each other. What happens next?
Well, I remember I went to the staff meeting, and I knew you'd be there. We hadn't met yet. I think we talked on the phone, right?
We talked on the phone because you wanted to work with at-promise kids, or you know what other people call at-risk kids. That was your specialization. You wanted to work with the kids that were left behind because you were a left behind kid. And then I happened to be a counselor of those kids. And so we talked over the phone because you knew you were coming and a friend connected you to me. And then we talked a little bit over the summer. And so day one, it's like professional development. You knew I was going to be there. You're going into your new workplace. What happens next?
So I see you. I talked to you, right? We talked. And I remember you were very professional. You were very professional. And I remember the students that we both worked with were really trying hard to set us up. And they wanted us to go out, and they would come to me and they're like, you have to go out with Mr. Rios. You know, we'll wash your car. We'll do this. Well, you know, and I was like, no, you know, I can't. And did they come up to you too?
They came up to me. I remember this clearly. So you and I met at that PD day, and we started working with the kids. And like 2 weeks into it, they knew that we were meant for each other, but we didn't know that yet.
Yeah.
We kind of had a little like connection.
Yeah.
But the kids knew something deeper than
They
that.
said you two have to get married.
They said that like day one.
Day one.
Yeah. And so they come up to me and they're like, hey, Mr. Rios, Ms. Mireles wants you to take her out on a date. Yeah. And I'm like, well, no, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then they go up to you. They're telling you, hey, Ms. Mireles, Mr. Rios wants to take you out. And then they made a deal with you. What was that deal?
That they'd wash my car. And then, and my car was dirty. It was always dirty. It's still dirty. Yeah. And then they washed my car if we went out. And then we both, I think, were so tired of hearing them. They were like, it was constant that we ran into each other in the hallway in between classes. And you're like, should we just do it? I'm like, yeah, let's go to lunch. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right across the street.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little tiny Chinese restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And we had lunch. Yeah. And we hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history.
Yep.
Here we are today. Yep. I just want to let the audience know too that we have this on video, but we're so committed to our students and education that 2 years into it, I proposed to you and I hid under your desk in your 6th grade classroom. And then some other teacher pulled you out and I was hiding under your desk. And then when you came back in, the kids gave you a bunch of roses and I jumped out.
12 dozen roses.
12 dozen, 144 roses.
Yep.
And then they surrounded you with those roses and I asked you to marry me.
Yeah.
So our story of love is really a story of education, which is also a story of healing, which is also our own stories of growing up, not having that intact family.
Yeah. And
so I think when we met, we knew one thing, right? We have a lot of differences in opinion, a lot of differences in character. I think you have a very strong character, and sometimes you got to remind me to have a strong character too. So we have differences that way, but I think what we knew we had in common day one when we met was that we were going to have an intact family for the rest of our lives. And I think we were telling each other that. We just didn't know that it was going to be with each other, that we were going to have that intact family. And that to me is important. And again, it's not about whether you've succeeded to create an intact family on your first try, but it's the fact that at some point you got to succeed to create that intact family, no matter how many times you've failed. And I think to me, that's the point here in our relationship, that we can teach the world, really. We haven't really talked to the world about our relationship. And so I want to thank you, because I know you don't like sharing a lot of your private life. So thank you for sharing. This is such a beautiful moment. But there's times where things haven't been that great between us. 24 years, right? We've had family pressures, work pressures, school pressures. I mean, we both did PhDs while married to each other, staggered. There was a time of maybe like a 16-year period of our relationship where either one of us was in school or some kind of school program. Oh yeah, and I forgot, we were broke that whole time too. We've been broke for a long time. People see us and like, oh, y'all, you got a podcast, you must have money to pay for. But the truth is that like most of our existence together, we know each other as a broke couple, right? Yeah. So the Journal of Marriage and Family found that financial disagreements contribute to 41% of divorces among new couples, with those facing financial instability being 40% more likely to experience stress that harms their relationship. I mean, that was us. We married young. I had just turned 23. You were 25 when we got married. And the American Sociological Review found that couples who marry in their early 20s are at a 48% higher risk of divorce than those who marry after 25. Yeah. So we had all the risk factors going against us as a couple, honey.
Wow.
We're researchers. That's why I like citing the research. Yeah. Do you think that's important to cite the research?
Yes, I think it's so important. And maybe I wish I knew a lot of the research back then. And then even knowing it now helps me forgive us and myself and you for things that we just,
We weren't alone.
Mm-mm.
A lot of other couples out there with those stressors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
How are you feeling right now?
You're like, I mean, it's like it's a beautiful place to kind of be at now and look back at like all we've been through. And I think it's important to let people know that it wasn't easy and that it is a lot of work. Yeah. It really was a lot of work back then.
Yeah.
And somehow we made it through.
We made it.
And so, I think about like how we made it. And I think the core, what you said is like our commitment to education, to kids, to our kids, to other people's kids. I think that's always grounded us. And I think we always kind of go back to that. And then I always think about something my dad told me when I was little. And I never understood it. I remember, I think I was in first grade when he first told me this. And I just now started thinking about it a little more. But he said, in your relationship, you need to be a pillar, your own pillar. And whoever you're with has to be their own.
Wow.
So that you could hold up the building or the foundation. And
that's so beautiful.
I know. And so I guess, I always knew that you were that pillar that would grow into the pillar, but also give me that space to do that for myself. And I know I needed that and I wanted that, and I wouldn't settle for anyone that wouldn't let me kind of, stand on my own. And that process, I think for both of us, was a journey too.
Yeah. But make yourself strong, please, so that you can help me make myself strong. And I think that's the power of our relationship. We help each other become strong because we've learned to become independently strong.
Yeah.
Just healing from our personal injuries from when we were little.
Yeah. And I think in the beginning, when coupled with all the research you just read, the financial kind of struggles we were going through, the family struggles we were going through outside of our own family, there wasn't a lot of room for us to heal, heal ourselves, or grow. So I think we've been given I feel like it's a luxury, right, of being able to go to therapy, take care of each other, take care of ourselves.
Yeah, healing is a luxury, and we have to take it from being a luxury to just being an everyday right for anyone. A couple that is broke, couple that just had kids, healing shouldn't have to be a luxury that we fight for 20 years to get to, and then now we get to self-heal and then help each other heal. So one amazing characteristic about us is that regardless of the challenges we have faced, we have always been committed to the marriage. Right? It's just like, we're going to stick through, even though neither one of us ever had good role models for such commitment. A study in the Journal of Family Issues found that strong commitment itself was the most significant predictor of marital stability. Just saying, like, we're going to stick through this, reducing divorce likelihood up to 80%. I know you mentioned some of the challenges and the forgiveness, what would you say has been one of the biggest challenges you faced in our marriage?
Maybe I think communication, especially in the beginning. I think part of kind of my going inward, and I think about for me, going inward, I just like from such a young age, I didn't know how to express my own needs or what I was feeling, and that was a struggle. And it was something that I had to learn how to do, and that I've learned to do, and I feel like I do a good job now. Yeah. And so I think for me that has been my struggle, and I think it's I think that's a struggle.
Hey, you've come a long way.
Yeah.
And for me, I think it's appreciation. Like, I know I appreciate you, but I haven't been that great at showing you every day how much I appreciate you. And so I know I've grown too in being able to just show you that, getting outside of my head and just being like, hey, I appreciate you for this and this, the specifics. And that's so important in a relationship. And it's just like, oh, I appreciate her. I know I appreciate her, so I don't really have to tell her. And that's not it. It's like, I appreciate her. Let me pause here and let me actually tell her I appreciate you. Yeah. So that, would you say too that I've learned a little bit more how to appreciate you, show you I appreciate you?
Yeah.
All right. So let's loop back to, we get together, we're young, we get married, and then like literally overnight, one day, all of a sudden, you're pregnant, and not just with one kid, you have two babies in that belly.
Yeah, two
twins.
Yeah.
So around 67% of couples report a decline in marital satisfaction during the first 3 years after having a child, primarily due to increased stress. So that's the Journal of Family Psychology. And do you remember those first 3 years? What that was like? I was in grad school.
Yeah.
You were teaching full-time 6th grade. You were the breadwinner in the family. And you would leave at 6 a.m. And you come home like at 5. We'd say hello and goodbye. And then I would go to Berkeley and study and write and do work. And then I come home like 2, 3 a.m. And then you would get up a couple hours after I got home. And then that cycle continued for a long, long time. You remember those days?
Yeah, the twins were 6 months. And you add having multiples and then being in grad school to the strain and stress on a marriage.
Yeah.
Increases that. So yeah, those are hard times.
Remember, like, really hard times. And remember, we just like, we kind of were strangers for months and months. Like, we were just like, didn't really know each other at the time. And I remember though, there was a little strategy that I think a couples therapist taught us, is like, we should touch our feet together at night, even though our kids were between us, just so that we could reaffirm to each other that we still had each other's back or each other's
connected
feet.
Still, yeah.
That we were still connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those little things got us through.
Yeah.
Maybe we can't like cuddle like we used to. The kids are in between us, or maybe we can't enjoy time together because we're got so much going on. You were working full time. I was in school full time, and I was working, and we had so much. And you were doing other master's programs. You were also doing school. It was just a lot. So we start getting the hang of things. A few years into our marriage, we learned how to work as a team. And then for those of you listening, you got to focus on that teamwork with your partner, approach challenges as a team rather than as an individual. A strong partnership can make obstacles seem smaller. Remember, it's not you versus each other. It's you two versus the problem. And I think that's what flipped it for us. Because at first we had come up having to raise ourselves sometimes on our own as individuals, or having to be alone, or having to live between places and not having stability, that we were so used to just like, it's us against the world, or me against the world. And now it's us two versus the problem. And once we got into that mindset, I think things started to open up a little bit between us.
Yeah. And I think having twins, we each, you were up every 3 hours with me, holding one baby, feeding one baby, taking care of. And so you were involved, you were there, you had to be. I know you wanted to be also. But I think that also bonded us in a way. I forgot about those nights, but
yeah,
we were both together.
We were.
That.
And that was like, raising those babies was tough because we had very little money, and they were high need, they were premature, and and I remember losing sleep all the way through their, fifth grade, really, from when they were born to fifth grade. Like, how are we going
for college?
How are we going to pay for college? How are we going to pay for college? That's what I would ask you every day.
You said, you actually, when I was pregnant, that's what your biggest fear was. And you do get a little bit fixated on things. And so that was one of your, like, that's all you could really think about. And I think everything you did, every decision you made for your career, for family, us moving, had to do with sending the girls to college.
Yeah. I remember being like, I got to work multiple jobs. Yep. I got to be a professor. I got to be an author. I got to be a keynoter. I got to be a business owner. I got to
podcast.
Have a podcast, whatever it takes to. Although, by the way, I'm not charging anyone for this podcast. So, but still, hey everyone, maybe this is a moment for you to go and buy the book. It'll help with tuition. But in the book, for any of you interested in my book, Street Life, right? There is a chapter about us. I won't tell them that part of the story, but the story is called, one part is already mentioned, which is the roses. But there's another part of the chapter called Chevy Impala. So I'll leave that to you all to read about the Chevy Impala that was involved in our engagement.
Yes.
And that's a good one. I got to tell the homies that story. But for now, I'll have y'all go read the book. Okay. So we set aside time for each other amid all these demands of kids and finances. We nurtured our relationship with a dedicated couple time. I remember that's maybe last 7 years or so. We always have time together on a given day at a given time. That's blocked off. That's for us to hang out, go on a walk, go catch up with each other, talk, have a conversation, whatever it is, right? We just have a couple's time, and we let the kids know, and they're down with it. They're like, yeah, we got each other. You just go and handle business. Or back when they were little, we found ways to get someone to take care of them for a little bit. So a thriving relationship is built on time well spent together. Mm-hmm. And we do that now. Like, we spend good time, not just time together, like, oh no, I got to hang out with you, but like good time together. One thing I remember recently, this is not even a few months ago, I had a job in the desert in the Coachella Valley. Yeah. And I was like, hey, can we make it like a couple's time just for like one night? And we stayed at a hotel. Yeah. We did a desert hike. And that, to me, is one of our most memorable times together, because we got a little bit of time in this beautiful place just to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so special.
Yeah. It's making time for even little moments of quality time, right?
Yeah, because I think some of the frustrations and some of the fighting comes from not connecting or not feeling disconnected from each other. And so, yeah, that is so important.
Yeah. Like I still got your back and we got time to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
That is still, and you still got my back, right? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We made time to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, folks, let's take a little pause here to reflect some of our conversations so far. Let it sink in. And again, just, this episode is brought to you by Street Life, Poverty Gangs and a PhD. Pick up your copy, revised edition 2024. It's got our story, and it's got the stories of the twins as well, and other great stories. Our profession too, a little bit about my own journey in the profession. So we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. I'm here with my wife, Rebeca Mireles-Rios, wife of 24 years, happily married. We're talking about some of the struggles we've been through being married. We're talking about our journeys, becoming professionals and doing it, supporting each other as a couple. We're talking about kids. We're talking about finances too. Like, there's many times we were broke, but we found a way to not let our relationship get broken. I'll say it again. Just because you're broke as a couple doesn't mean you should allow your relationship to be broken, right? There's ways to get through, and there's strategies for that. Just tell me, Rebecca, really quick, like, what do you think are some strategies we use to keep our relationship strong?
You've talked about this, making time for each other. I think that's a really key piece, because without that time connecting, it's easy to drift apart. And so definitely time. And I think, the communication, working on communicating what we both need and what that looks like, and finding ways to support each other that way, I think.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we do to really click, I think in recent times is, and it sounds so simple, but I think like when we go on a walk together, sometimes I don't want to walk. Sometimes, you like walking, I don't like walking. And then we go on a walk together and I feel like we really click. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those moments, just the strategies to click, right? Like, what is it that makes you click as a couple? And I think when we go on a little 10-minute walk around the block, we click. And then all of a sudden, our relationship starts to feel more rock solid.
Yeah, I think that actually started when we moved to Santa Barbara, and we started doing a little run around the lagoon.
Yeah.
And those 20-minute runs, 30-minute runs together every day when we drop off our Marco, our now 14-year-old, at childcare. I think that was a routine, like really healthy routine that we that became part of our everyday life. Yeah. And so I think creating those healthy routines and finding something healthy to do together, was really important.
So for the audience, we've come up with just a few little pointers on what you could be doing to strengthen those relationships. And most of it, we're talking about a romantic relationship here, but there's relationships out there that you build based on these same foundations, whether it's family or friends, loved ones, roommates. If you're around people that are not doing well financially or with a lot of stress, of course, your relationships could be impacted by that. So here are a few strategies we'll leave the audience with. Okay, so here's some strategies from us on how to maintain that strong relationship. Couples with regular open communication are 60% more likely to report relationship satisfaction. And this is a Journal of Family Psychology. And Rebecca talked about communication as an important one for us. Conflict resolution, learning some basic conflict resolution skills has helped us a lot And those who practice positive conflict resolution are 30% less likely to divorce. And this is in the Journal of Family Process. And just really quick, I want to talk about one of our conflict resolution strategies. Nowadays, instead of blaming, if I feel like you're blaming me, I'll say, "Oh, can you make that into a request?"
Yeah,
that works really good.
It works, yeah.
It's like, "Hey, you did this. Hey, how come you made us late to this or that?"
Hey, Rebecca, I have a request for you.
Yeah, hey, Rebecca, a request for you.
And it works.
Next time,
I can hear that better.
if I say 2:00 for the podcast, would you be okay with being out of the house at 2:00? I'm not throwing any side digs at you right now, honey. I'm just saying, like, giving an example. That's all. So the emotional support in marriage is important. Mutual emotional support. I got your back. You got this. I believe in you. Go get your PhD. Go become a university professor. Backing each other up. When you feel that from your partner, you report 40% higher marital satisfaction. That's the Journal of Marriage and Family. So it's not just us telling you, hey, this is what works for us. It's us being researchers, knowing that it works for us, and then finding studies that connect to what we do that are best practices. Yeah. So on a daily basis, it's important to express appreciation. Yeah. That's another one for you all. We try to listen without interrupting. You got to listen with curiosity, not just to respond. I'm like, okay. Even sometimes I'll just be honest. Like, I know I say things that annoy you. You say things that annoy me. And I literally bite my tongue and just listen with curiosity. Yeah. We share a physical connection, right? Simple gestures like holding hands, hugging, or a quick kiss. They really do strengthen our emotional bonds. And sometimes I know you don't like a lot of PDA, like me coming up to you and trying to French kiss you in public. But I think that's important. So, hey, after reading this study, I'm gonna try to do that more often. Sometimes all it takes is a touch, just a touch to show your love with your loved one. So we practice patience and forgiveness. We let go of grudges. Forgiveness is the lifeblood of all relationships. I think the peak of our conversation today, if I can mention that, you really got really emotional when you talked about forgiveness. I think forgiveness is important. And I know we've had to go through those moments, right, of forgiving each other. We spend a lot of quality time together as much as we can. We show affection in words, and we reaffirm our commitment. This one's important, folks. Once in a while, tell your partner, I am committed to you. Right? It sounds very formal, very weird. Like, I'm committed to you, Rebecca. But I know Rebecca thrives off of that, and I know I thrive off of it. So when I hear her say, hey, Vic, I'm committed to you, or if I say, hey, Rebecca, I'm committed to you, it just feels kind of special. So try it out. Go, after listening to the podcast, just go tell your loved one, sneak up on them, give them a hug when you get home and be like, hey, Bobby, I'm committed to you. Let's see how Bobby reacts. All right. A strong relationship requires choosing to love each other even on the hard days, right? Choose to love each other even on the hard days. So to conclude, Rebecca's journey reminds us that the most challenging moments in life can often lay the foundation for the strongest commitments and most meaningful relationships. From a young girl facing the pain of divorce and the sting of bullying, Rebecca chose resilience, using these experiences as fuel to create a life focused on success, care, stability, and support. Not only for herself, but for the countless students and future teachers she now inspires. Her dedication to building a healthy, lasting marriage reflects her commitment to create a relationship built on mutual respect, appreciation, and growth. To those listening, remember that relationships, whether they are with a partner, a friend, or our children, thrive not because they're easy, but because they're approached with intention and understanding. As Rebecca and I discovered, it's not about finding a relationship without struggles, but about creating a relationship where through every trial, you commit to growing stronger together. Thank you, sweetie, Rebecca, for being here. for being my rock, my best friend, the love of my life. I appreciate you. I am committed to you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Sueños to Success. Next time, we will be talking to my mom. I got to tell you, my mom caused me a lot of pain growing up, but she also gave me a lot of skill sets to succeed. So I'll be asking her perspective on what was going on in her mind when this was happening. Until next time, remember, struggles are not the end of your journey. Your story isn't over. It's just the beginning.